Tonight's video is a recap of what we've been talking about for acids and bases to hopefully clarify some of the questions that we still have about this. There's a few objectives for tonight's video. One is being able to identify acids and bases. We need to be able to explain what an acid and a base is. We need to be able to do experimental design. And then lastly, explain the pH scale. To begin with here, I have a T-chart that's just showing you how acids and bases compare. An acid tastes sour when you taste it. It conducts electricity. It's considered a proton donor and it has a pH between 0 and 7. Okay, and we'll go into that in more detail here in a second. Bases, on the other hand, are bitter. They also conduct electricity though. They're proton acceptors and they have a pH between 7 and 14. A few examples here of acids we've looked at and talked about have been lemon juice, soda, hydrochloric acid, battery acid, sulfuric acid. Okay, these are all considered acids. And what it means to be a proton donor here is that when I have a reaction between something like hydrochloric acid and water here, when you put the hydrochloric acid in water, what happens is the hydrochloric acid breaks down into H plus and Cl minus. At which point, the water or another base is going to accept that proton, that H plus, to form what's called a hydronium molecule, which is H3O plus. And then we've got Cl minus still in solution. Bases, on the other hand, tend to be household cleaning products. We don't eat many bases, so you've got things like drain cleaners, soap, sodium hydroxide, magnesium hydroxide. If we're talking about chemicals that are bases, they tend to have hydroxide in their name. And what it means for them to be a donor or a proton acceptor is that if I take the reaction of hydrochloric acid plus sodium hydroxide here, what happens is the sodium hydroxide breaks down into ions here, and so does the hydrochloric acid. And as a result, we get two new products formed. We get a salt, in this case sodium chloride, and then we also get water. The hydroxide ion, the OH minus, is going to bond with the H plus that's being donated by an acid. Now, as far as experimental design goes, there's a lot of ways that you could determine whether something is an acid or a base. One that we started out here with was being able to taste the foods. Okay? We've been designed to like acidic foods, and they taste sour to us, and so we include a lot of acidic foods in our diet. On the other hand, bases are bitter. They don't taste very good to us, but we do eat a couple bases in the forms of antacids, unsweetened chocolate, milk, and magnesium. We have two indicators that we've looked at in the lab that are for acids only, and one of those is how acids react with magnesium. When you put a metal in a solution with an acid, what's going to happen is that metal is going to be reacted with the acid, and you're going to get hydrogen gas as a product. Okay? And so you're going to see bubbles form. Blue litmus paper is just a form of pH paper that detects whether something is an acid or not. And so blue litmus paper turns red in the presence of acids. We have a couple solutions that we looked at that are just for bases. Phenolphthalein is one of them. And phenolphthalein goes from clear to pink in a basic solution. The other indicator that we have for a base is red litmus paper. And just like blue litmus paper, it changes color just for bases in this case. And so red litmus paper turns blue in the presence of a base. The last two indicators I have on here are wide range pH indicators. Okay? And what that means is they're going to change color based on a certain pH range that they're within. All right? You taken home pH paper and you tested it, and it changed color based on whether your food was acidic or basic, and specifically it changed a certain color depending on the pH. So pH paper does the entire pH range between 0 and 14 and changes color based on what that pH is. We also looked at universal indicator, which is just like pH paper. It changes color based on what that pH is. So a pH of 0 is going to be a red color, whereas a pH of 14 is going to be a dark blue. Depending on what you're testing, it's going to change color and it's going to tell you exactly what that pH is. Now, all this talk of pH. With acids and bases, we can measure how acidic or how basic something is on the pH scale. So when something has a low pH, and that's a pH between 0 and 7, what we're looking at here are acids. Okay, so between 0 and 7 are acids. And what gives something an acidic pH is a high hydronium concentration. Okay? When you look at acids and bases, if it's acidic, it's going to have more hydronium ions than hydroxide ions. If it's basic, it's going to have more hydroxide ions than hydronium ions. pH of 7 here, though, in the middle, is what's considered neutral. And that means that there's just as many hydronium ions as there are hydroxide ions, or very close to the same amount. All right. Bases, on the other hand, have a pH between 7 and 14. These, like I said before, have a higher hydroxide ion concentration. Now to give us a breakdown of some examples at each of these pHs. So when we talk about a pH of 0, we're talking about battery acid. This is extremely corrosive, it'd be bad for you, you don't want to consume battery acid. pH of 1 is the pH of your stomach, okay? That acidity of your stomach acid allows you to digest your food and break it down to smaller parts so other proteins and enzymes can go in and extract nutrients from it. pH of 2 is soda and lemon juice. Individuals that drink a lot of soda, you tend to have your enamel stripped from your teeth, and that's going to lead to cavities and other dental problems. So that's why your dentist tells you not to drink a lot of soda. pH of 3 is vinegar. pH of 4 is tomatoes. For my coffee drinkers, you're getting your acidity at a pH of 5 if you drink it black. Okay, so it's not as acidic as soda, but it's still acidic, and it's bad for your teeth. pH of 6 is rainwater, and we'll talk more about rainwater, why it's got a acidic pH to it compared to something like distilled water or seawater, which has a pH of 7 or a pH of 8. And then on this screen here, the last one we have is pH of 7, and that's distilled water. Your body, the fluid in you, is mostly water, and it also tries to maintain that pH right around 7. So if you start to become acidic in your blood or basic, your body's not going to be able to function properly. On the basic side of things, starting with a pH of 8, we have seawater. And then at pH of 9 and pH of 10, we have laundry detergent and dish soap. pH of 11 is household ammonia, which is found in a lot of cleaning products. And then pH of 12 is what's called lime water, which is calcium hydroxide that's been dissolved in water. Okay. pH of 13, this is mainly for girls here, but hair remover, products like Nair, you're using a basic solution that's dissolving and breaking down the hair that you want to remove. A pH of 14 is drain cleaner, and this is what you use to clean out your drains, so it's extremely basic. There are acidic drain cleaners, but most of them are bases that they use to clean out your pipes. Our quiz on Friday over this material here is, I want to talk about what you need to know how to do. And what you need to know is you need to know the basic pH scale and whether something's acidic or basic given the pH on that. Okay, and why is that acidic or basic? And that goes back to hydronium or hydroxide ions. You need to know indicator solutions to test for both acids and bases. and you also need to know what defines something as an acid and what defines something as a base. We're going to be doing more work with this week. We're going to be looking at stomach acid and a couple other things. So I'll see you tomorrow in class.